following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFN Geek, and today I am coming to you with an extra special review. Now, the last few reviews I've started to look at the Transformers figures that have been released in Wave 1 of the Legacy United line, which celebrates the 40th anniversary of the Transformers franchise for the current year of 2024. But for this review, we are going to do something a little different and special today. We are going to time travel back to the now bygone year of 2009, 15 years ago, when the Transformers franchise was only celebrating its 25th anniversary. And today, the Transformers figure that we are going to be taking a look at is one that I managed to get for Christmas last year in 2023, right before it ended, and it was a Transformers figure that I wanted to get when it originally came out in 2009, but I missed out on it because partially the main reason was that it was a Walmart exclusive and there's no Walmarts where I live even today. So without further delay, let's take a look at an oldie but a goodie, and it is a Transformers figure that you guys probably never suspected I would review on my channel. It is Transformers Universe Classics 25th Anniversary Decepticon Skyfall. So yeah, here is what the Transformers action figures released in the equivalent of the Legacy line were being sold in back in 2009. Before Hasbro and Tomy came up with the word Transformers Generations, they had used the word Classics. And when the Classics line continued into the Transformers Universe line in 2008 and 2009, they combined the words Universe Classics and Classics, and that's where the term Chug gets two of the letters in its acronym come from are the words Classic and Universe. The other letters are Henkei and Generations, because those were the first four major lines of Transformers action figures that were quote-unquote updated/upgraded versions of Transformers figures that have been released in the past. And Skyfall here is an all-black and red-orange repaint of the Transformers Universe Silverbolt action figure, and the main reason I wanted to get him is because he is based off a Decepticon from the Transformers Generation 2 series that was named Skyjack. That's why there's two words in the title of the video. When this figure was released in 2009, Hasbro found they couldn't get a registered trademark to the name Skyjack, so they renamed him Skyfall. And just like other Generation 2 Transformers characters being released at the time in 2009, as far few of them as there were, even though he's a Generation 2 figure, this guy has 3 Generation 1 Decepticon logos found on him, because apparently Hasbro decided at the time it would be confuse Transformers fans and collectors seeing the Generation 2 logo brought back, even if it was for correct Generation 2 characters. So there's the 25th anniversary logo here on the top corner of the box, 1984 to 2009. Amazes me that it was 15 years ago that the 25th anniversary was being celebrated. Skyfall is a Decepticon, and before we continue further, one thing I want to share with you guys, one thing that makes Skyfall special is that he is a now defunct size class of Transformers figure that doesn't exist anymore, known as Ultra Class. Ultra Class was the size class of Transformers figures that were bigger than Voyagers but smaller than Leader Class Transformers figures. The average height for Ultra Class Transformers when they were being released was slightly taller than modern day Leader Class Transformers figures are. At the time, I am in 2009, the average price tag for Leader Class Transformers was still $40, and Voyager Class figures still could be found for $20, so Ultra Class Transformers were retailed for $30. I think the height for them was 10 inches tall for Ultra Class Transformers, because Voyagers were only 8 inches tall. It was actually here in the Transformers Universe Classics line that this was the last line in which Ultra Class Transformers figures were found. After the year 2009, Ultra Class Transformers disappeared, and Hasbro decided to no longer sell Transformers in this size class. And looking back, I do remember always seeing Ultra Class size Transformers figures shelf warming, and no one buying them. So I think they were the lowest selling size class of Transformers action figures, which is why Hasbro did away with them, and they decided that that Voyager class or Leader class would be the size appropriate size classes for Transformers figures that otherwise would have gone to Ultra class if the size hadn't been discontinued. So, with that background information out of the way, Skyfall, he is pretty accurate to Generation 2 Skyjack, even in robot mode, despite the fact that he is straight up repaint of Silverbolt. That's what this mold was originally designed for, to be Generation 1 Silverbolt. But some collectors who got this figure when it was released back in 2009 said that pretty much if Hasbro had just designed a brand new head sculpt that looked more like Generation 2 Skyjack, then Skyfall could have been a wholehearted modern Skyjack figure, not just black Silverbolt. But considering what Hasbro had to go with, I think the figure came out pretty great. And this was my personal favorite use of this mold. It was released 4 times. There were 2 versions of Silverbolt. There was a gray one that had a brand new paint job, and there was a white one that had Silverbolt's Generation 1 paint job. Then it was also used to make Edwin, and who in more recent years, Dreadwind was given a deluxe class figure in the Power of the Primes line. And then, of course, we have Skyfall based on Generation 2 Skyjack. So if I call this guy either by Skyfall or Skyjack in the review, it's the same figure, just with 2 different trademark names. And another feature of the Ultra Class Transformers figures was that they had electronic lights and sounds. And I was amazed when I read on Amazon, where I got this figure, that the electronic lights and sounds were still working. So there's 3 of them. The sounds, I don't know how well my microphone's going to pick it up, but the sounds are like this. That's 1. There's 2. And 3. So you've got an engine starting, an engine takeoff, and machine gun fire. The 2 engine sounds, the lights are in the actual engines at the back of the jet. Then the machine gun fire is at the machine gun sticking out below the on the fuselage of the jet. And you probably saw them. But yeah, there's so much to see about here. I cannot believe that this is what Transformers boxes looked like 15 years ago. Oh, from the current year of 2024. I mean, it's just astounding. One thing to note is that Skyfall wasn't exclusive in the United States, as you could tell by the sticker up here on the top of the box. He was sold exclusively at Walmart stores, and at the time in 2009, Hasbro decided, rather than designing special distinct boxes to let Transformers fans and collectors know they were buying a Transformers figure that was being sold exclusively at one store, such as today in the Legacy line, you now have the Legacy figures that are released in bluish purple boxes, the ones at mass retail. Those that released exclusively at Target have been sold in the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line, which is mostly yellow colored boxes. And then we have the most recently the Legacy Evolution G2 Toxitron collection figures, that are the latest Walmart exclusives that have been sold in green, in a neon colored boxes. So at the time in 2009, for Universe Classics, the exclusive figures had stickers on the boxes, but they came in virtually the exact same style packaging as those at mass retail, with only the sticker to distinguish that it was an exclusive. So yeah, that's where Hasbro's budget was back in 2009. And I've always just loved the silver chrome used on the 25th anniversary logo. So yeah, on the top of the box, it's nothing too special. It's the Transformers Universe Classics logo. On this side of the box, you've got some artwork of Skyjack or Skyfall, all in his robot mode. He is from the Generation 2 series, and sadly, as I already said, Hasbro decided not to use the G2 Decepticon logo, and actually they didn't start using it until the Legacy line quite recently. So, Generation 2 Transformers characters had the G1 logo slapped onto them. And there he is. And on that top of the box, Hasbro wanted to celebrate the 25th anniversary by reminding everyone that the Transformers are robots in disguise. Nice. Coming around here to this side of the box, up here on this indentation, there's the size class, Ultra Class, which doesn't exist anymore, and another one of the Ultra Class figures being sold in the Universe Classics line at the time was Hardhead. I don't have that figure, but I don't have any plans or any desire to get that figure right now, because Hardhead was a repaint of Onslaught, and at the time, Silverbolt and Onslaught weren't combiner Transformers, but we got figures of them in the Combiner Wars line in 2015, and Hardhead got a more Generation 1 accurate figure in the Deluxe class size in the Titans Return line in 2016, so that figure is one that I have no interest in getting. Here on the bottom of the box, you've got something that doesn't exist anymore. You can join the Transformers Collectors Club at the time in 2009. And then for other Universe Classics figures in the Deluxe class size, you have Starscream, Dinobot, who was marketed as a Predacon since that's how he started in the Beast Wars cartoon, and you have Smokescreen. I have Dinobot and Smokescreen in my collection. I missed out on Starscream, but I made a custom figure of him, so it's nice to see that those figures being advertised on there. And then coming around to the back of the box, we've got the most interesting side after the front with the display window. And that's another thing I miss from Transformers packaging, is the plastic display window on there. Air, electronic lights and sounds, a plastic display window. Also being sold, transformed in alt mode instead of robot mode. So Hasbro was doing things quite differently in 2009 compared to 2024. So coming out here to the back of the box, you've got all the standard features that were found on Transformers boxes in the Universe Classics line. And you've got the robot mode and the alt mode. It doesn't say how many steps it takes to transform the figure because that was a feature Hasbro decided wasn't worth putting on the box since there was already so many things on there. It says you have electronic lights and sounds. You have actually another feature that Skyfall comes with, which you probably already saw inside the box. He has a spring-loaded missile launcher that fires an actual spring-loaded missile. That's another thing that you don't see on Transformers figures these days. It's advertising that across the first 25 years of the Transformers franchise, Skyfall was sold as part of the Generation 2 franchise, which lasted 3 whole years from 1992 to 1995. For the first 25 years. His vehicle mode is just labeled a fighter jet, and it's actually a mashup of different vehicles. It takes a lot of design cues from the Concorde jet, again because this was originally designed for Silverbolt. But then the back of the plane, the wingspan, and on the very back of it is triangle shaped, and it looks almost like the B-2 stealth bomber. But then the tail fins and the overall slanted wings takes design cues from the SR-71 Blackbird. So this mold's vehicle mode is a mashup of all these supersonic and stealth aircraft that have ever existed, you could argue. And then two final features on the box that I wish would come back. There's actually 3 features left. Up here on the top of the box, it has a difficulty meter of how difficult the transformation is. On a scale of 1 to 4, Skyfall is a level 3 advanced transformation. But then here on the side of the box, as you've probably all been reading, I'll hold it up so you can go ahead and pause the video if you want to read it, and then I'll hold this up here so you can pause the video and see that. Sorry for the camera being blurry. But yeah, there is a full paragraph bio and text specs explaining to you who Skyfall is. And so his text specs read that on a scale of 1 to 10, he has a strength of 5, an intelligence of 8, a speed of 8, an endurance of 4, a rank of 5, a courage of 4, a fire blast of 7, and a skill of 7. So he is pretty weak. He's a coward. He's an average ranking Decepticon, and he has an average amount of strength, but he makes up for this by being really smart, really fast, having a above average amount of firepower and an above average amount of combat skill. And Skyfall's full paragraph bio reads, "No one trusts Skyfall, and rightfully so. If he proposes a toast to your health, it's probably because he poisoned your drink. He is a master spy with connections throughout both the Autobot and Decepticon armies. Rumors about him run rampant, and he does nothing to confirm nor deny any of them. He enjoys the uncertainty and even fear with which other Decepticons regard him. He is one of the few Decepticons to enjoy solitary face-to-face meetings with Megatron, and yet he has been spotted openly walking through Autobot bases as well." So yeah, even though, ironically, his tech specs give him a courage of 4, indicating that he's a coward. Skyfall, Eyefall in his bio, ironically, has no fear. That could be stupidity. He's too stupid to realize that he's behind enemy lines, and too stupid to realize that he's made himself a threat to even other Decepticons to the point that he can talk to Megatron one-on-one. But either way, I really enjoy finally having this figure in my collection. So without further delay, let's get Skyfall out of his box and take a close look at him in his vehicle mode. Alright, and here's another not so interesting blast from the past, but I wanted to share this with you guys regardless. Up until I want to say the year 2010, starting with the Transformers Hunt for the Decepticons line, Transformers action figures used to be tied down with metal wire tie downs that had a layer of plastic film covering them. So this is another enjoyment from my childhood. Seeing these again, and it's only on old school Transformers figures that you'll find these. These were commonplace throughout the decade of the 2000s for Transformers figures to be tied down with these. Here's just a quick close-up of Skyfall inside his packaging. And so for the electronic lights and sounds, the first two are the engines, so here's a more close-up view of them. And the third one comes out up here on these machine guns right behind this red clip that looks like a button. I don't know how you're going to be able to see that, but so there's the three electronic lights and sounds. Just wanted to share that with you guys before I actually finish getting Skyfall out of his box. Alright, and so here is Skyfall out of his box, and in the mode he comes packaged in, which is vehicle mode. That's another thing you don't see from Transformers figures. So yeah, this is by all accounts a throwback video. Why I didn't save it for a throwback Thursday night, don't ask me. But here is Skyfall, or Skyjack, in all his glory. His paint job almost matches his original Generation 2 figure. The only difference is that there isn't a thick yellow outline separating the red from the black. But that's just a minor nitpick. I can't complain because this is a figure I've been wanting for a long time since it came out. I never got a hold of it, so it's just a thrill to finally have it in here. And his, like other modern day Transformers figures, his missile does sit underneath the nose cone. However, the round 5mm peg isn't the only one holding it placed. There's a smaller, I want to say 2.5mm peg that's rectangular shaped. Actually, it might be 5, like the round one. But anyways, that holds it in place so it doesn't, have no fear of it moving side to side. It stays always pointed straight forward. And then again, here's the spring-loaded missile. This little red button right here fires it, and as you can see, that's something that you don't see in Transformers figures these days, is a spring-loaded missile. It's really nice to see that once again. He's got a military ID number there. I don't. It's the same on both sides. I don't know if FB 129 means anything special. And then of course he's got the G1 Decepticon logo on both sides of his fuselage. And then going here to the back of the plane, you've got the engine thrusters. So the first sound actually doesn't light anything up, but the second one lights up the engine thrusters. So there you've got the engine takeoff. And then the third sound lights up the missile pods on the fuselage behind the cockpit, which is machine gun fire. So that's pretty great to see that there. Because this was never opened or taken out of the box, that means it has the original batteries that have been in there since 2009. So it's probably why it isn't that loud and why the lights aren't shining that brightly. I may open up the battery compartment and replace the batteries, but for now, it is a pretty fantastic looking jet regardless. And there's no denying that this mold is huge. It's huge. Skyfall is a big jet, and for a size comparison with another more recently released Transformers jet that has kind of sort of the same engineering to it, here he is next to Legacy Needle Nose, and as you can see, standing them up in a jet mode, Skyfall is so tall he's not fitting on my camera. If I pick it up, there you can see there. So yeah, the old school ultra class Transformers were pretty tall. Again, they were designed to stand 10 inches tall, so we're talking the same height as the original G.I. Joe action figures from the 1960s tall. So that's all. Skyfall here, he doesn't really go through too much mass shifting. He doesn't get his robot mode is roughly the same size as his jet mode. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why I decided to bring out Needle Nose for a size comparison is because As just like Needle Nose, the robot mode is folded up almost entirely underneath the jet mode. So if you wanted to, which I don't recommend doing, you could horizontally slice this thing in half, and you'd end up with the robot mode and the jet mode being separated from each other. So, it's basically by all accounts a backpack armor. So armor. But one thing that this figure does have that Needle Nose and most modern jet transformers do not is that Skyfall actually has working landing gear, and here, see, turn around so you can actually see it. The wheels actually spin in place. There's one in the front under the nose cone, and there's two all the way in the back, so you don't have to use your imagination. You can actually push this thing around and have it rolling around on the ground, so you can imagine him leaving a military base and about to take off on a runway and rolling off the ground to take flight. So that's another feature that is no longer seen on more modern Transformers action figures. But yeah, I am just super thrilled, and I just stop me repeating myself or babbling on. And that's pretty much it for Skyfall's jet mode. He's large, he's imposing, and again, as his bio reads, this is a Decepticon that I would not want to meet up with in the dark. So let's get him transformed into his robot mode and wrap up the review. Oh yes, I almost forgot. Just one little thing I wanted to show you. Here's his instruction sheet. Thankfully, he doesn't use alkaline batteries. A lot of Transformers figures in the 2000s used the silver disc-shaped alkaline batteries since they were smaller and could be stored more easily. But he relies on two AAA batteries, so I will probably change the batteries in there since they've been in there for 15 years. Hopefully, there isn't too much corrosion. And there's the Transformers Universe logo on that side. The instruction sheets each at the time in the 2000s were color coded. The Decepticon instruction sheets had purple as the background color, and the Autobots had red. I don't think they're still color coded today. Based on a faction, they're just color coded based on a sub-series areas, but I do miss the distinction of the Decepticons having purple instruction sheets and the Autobots having red ones. And just one more thing I forgot to show with Skyfall's missile launcher, which becomes his machine gun. On the back of it, he's got a little carved B-2 stealth bomber drone sitting on top of it. It doesn't detach. The only moving part is the spring-loaded missile. But that's a really cool design there. And this is the exact same gun that came with Silverbolt, so you can make yourself know what you think the designers at Hasbro and Takar told me were trying to go, having a B-2 stealth bomber sitting by the trigger of this laser gun. Alright, and so here is Skyfall transformed into his robot mode, and again, he is a pretty tall Decepticon. Again, he is a repaint of Silverbolt, so he's got the whole nose cone hanging off the back of him. And it does face the opposite direction of Generation 1 Silverbolt, which is why, even though this figure is larger than the Combiner Wars version, it is still the superior one. And the Combiner Wars one is the superior figure because of that. You've got this button on the back which still activates the electronic sounds, though the only lights are still the engine thrusters, which are now on the top of his back that light up. The spring-loaded missile also works too, so it's pretty nice looking. Articulation is really limited on this figure again because this figure was released in the Transformers Universe Classics line back in 2009, and because of the electronic lights and sounds, being encased inside the torso, the articulation is really limited. So for articulation, the head can spin left and right 360 degrees, but it can't look up and down. The arms have the potential to spin on ratchet joints at the shoulders 360 degrees, but there's no moving the wings. They're permanently fixed, so backwards movement on the arms is rendered useless. The arms can go inward and outward at the shoulder. You have a bicep swivel, which is really stiff. Ratchet jointed knees, no wrist articulation due to the hands fold in and out of the torso. Legs that can go forward this far, and they have the potential to go all the way back, but it's hindered again by the backpack. Swivel joints in the thighs, ratchet jointed knees. A lot of ratchet joints were used on ultra class figures, and the feet can technically go up and down at the toes, but that's just more for transformation, not an actual robot mode joint. And yeah, that's articulation. So even though this figure was released in 2009, it had a lot of the older limited articulation in it, so it is kind of a brick compared to modern fully articulated Transformers figures. And there's the third Decepticon logo found on Skyfall. Again, it's the G1 logo, just like the two that he has in his jet mode, which ended up on his back. I'm glad that they at least did them silver, so you can distinguish them from the rest of him. Uh, so you can find them right away. But yeah, there is Skyfall, aka Skyjack, in his robot mode. And for one last size comparison, I apologize for not bringing out Needle Nose, but for a fun size comparison, here he is next to the Earthrise Seeker mold. This is the generic Decepticon Seeker from the buzzworthy Bumblebee Army Building Trooper 4-pack. And even though Voyager class figures were bulkier than modern Voyager class figures were back in 2009, from the topmost part of this mold, which is the intake vents at the shoulders on this mold. Voyager class Transformers at the top of their heads, they stood roughly this tall, as tall as the entire Earthrise Seeker jet is as well. So yeah, Ultra class Transformers figures were pretty tall. So Skyfall is one of the larger Decepticons that's around. Now, so, for the final question I always ask in my reviews, do I recommend getting Transformers Universe Classics 25th Anniversary Skyfall and adding him to your Transformers collection? Well, if you weren't able to get him when he came out back in 2009, I do recommend getting this figure if you want to get him for the reason I did and expand your collection of Generation 2 Decepticons in your Transformers collection, and also because he's based on the Generation 2 character of Skyjack. Skyfall is somewhat special in the regard that he's one of only 2 figures that this particular Transformers character has been given. So I only recommend getting this figure if you want to see an evil Decepticon look-alike of Silverbolt done in a black and red orange paint job. And even though I said at the start of the review that Ultra Class Transformers originally retailed for $30, the price I paid for Skyfall was $100 due to the fact that it's now been 15 years since this figure was released, so he is going for a hefty price on the aftermarket, brand new. So I only recommend getting this figure if you're an avid Transformers fan and collector, but if you're not, and you have no interest in getting an old school Transformers figure that came out in 2009, then this figure can be an easy pass. And who knows, it's just my luck, Hasbro announces later this year that that Skyjack is gonna be one of the Generation 2 Decepticon jets being given a modern figure in the Legacy line. But for now, this has been one of only 2 figures of Generation 2 Skyjack that's been released, the first being the original G2 Skyjack figure, which, if I remember on the TF Wikipedia, it was either 1993 or 1994 when G2 Skyjack came out. But yeah, this has been my review of 25th Anniversary Transformers Universe Classics Skyfall, aka Generation 2 Skyjack. Hope you guys enjoyed this review of this old school Transformers figure and taking a trip back in time to what Transformers figures were like in 2009. So thank you guys all so much, and until next time, you guys, this has been the TF Geek. Stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.